At first, Ted Lasso simply seems like a goofy, lighthearted fish-out-of-water comedy. A chance for all of us to laugh at a bumbling American football coach trying to figure out the game of soccer at the highest level, the English Premier League. And while this show that was based on a 2013 NBC commercial absolutely is all of those things, it actually ends up becoming so much more than that. Ted Lasso is a story about the power of belief and human connection, with Coach Lasso himself as our case study. Early in season 1 of the show, after Ted had been hired as the coach of the Richmond Football Club, a reporter interviewed Coach Lasso to give the fans of Richmond a closer look at their new coach. During this interview, Ted has an important exchange with the interviewer that sets the tone for the show and lets us as the viewer understand what kind of leader Ted Lasso is.
For me, success is not about the wins and losses. It's about helping these young fellas be the best versions of themselves on and off the field.
I don't want to cherry pick that quote and misconstrue Coach Lasso's intentions as a leader. He does care about his team getting better and winning, but that is not his primary measure of success. What makes the show Ted Lasso different from other sports-based movies or shows is that the sport is the setting and the people are the focus. One prominent example of Coach Lasso developing those whom he leads is that of Roy Kent. Roy Kent is a player that had been recently traded to Richmond when Ted became the coach. Roy Kent is a disgruntled veteran player, a former superstar whose best years as a soccer player are behind him. He wants little to do with the team, and even less to do with Coach Lasso and his overly optimistic style. Roy displays this displeasure by communicating primarily in grunts. One would think that there was little that Ted could do to develop Roy. Not only does Roy know infinitely more about the game of soccer than Coach Lasso, but he is also at the end of his career. It would seem like there's not much room left for Roy to grow. That's not what Coach Lasso saw. He challenged Roy not to think of himself just as a player, but also as a leader. One of the first ways he did this was with an exercise in which he gave each of his players a book that he felt would teach them an important lesson that they needed for their personal development. To Roy, he gave A Wrinkle in Time. When Roy asked Ted about the purpose of receiving this book, he gets a response that A Wrinkle in Time is a story about a young girl's struggle with the burden of leadership as she travels through space.
Am I supposed to be the little girl?
I like you to be.
Ted saw something in Roy that Roy could not see in himself and continued to mentor him and push him to grow until Roy Kent was an integral part of the team, serving as the team captain and a mentor to many of the younger players. And after retirement, he became an assistant coach of Richmond under Coach Lasso. Roy Kent is not the only person within his sphere of influence that Coach Lasso has had an effect on. Ted Lasso is a man that is personified by the banner which he hangs up in the Richmond locker room. He believes, whether it is in his team or the potential of others to grow. Nathan Shelley was a timid and mistreated ball boy when the show started. He loved the game of soccer and felt lucky simply to be associated with the team. Ted saw something more in him and helped him develop his confidence and eventually become a talented coach. Rebecca Welton was the aloof and bitter owner of the Richmond Football Club. Her initial reaction to Coach Lasso and his unique style was to rebuff his efforts to connect with her. Eventually, Ted's persistent optimism won her over, not only forging a friendship between the two of them, but also helping her to open up to all those around her. Jamie Tart was a spoiled superstar who did not care about the team as long as he was able to get his individual accolades. Ted was able to challenge him to take an honest look at what kind of person he wanted to be and to grow to the point where he was willing to play out of position, sacrificing personal glory to give the team a better chance of success. The more you watch this show, the clearer it becomes that the character of Ted Lasso is more than a nice and goofy man bumbling his way through an unfamiliar culture. He is a leader who takes pride in developing his people. The difference between you being a leader and a manager is how you view your people, as a resource or as an asset. Let me make that distinction clear. A resource is a supply that needs to be managed carefully. It is stored until it is needed and not considered again until there is a use for it. An asset is something of value to the organization. It is well cared for and made sure that it is operating at its peak performance. An asset is integral to organizational success, so it requires investment and special attention. If you view your people as a resource, they are useful but also disposable. To truly be a leader, you need to understand that your people are your organization's most valuable asset and should be treated as such. To fully accomplish that, they need to be developed. Most people need guidance, direction, and development in their life to some degree. Do not assume that your people, even your high performers, are finished products. They may want to present themselves as such to you, but you have to see through that. Understand the weaknesses and strengths of your people to see where you are best able to provide them with valuable insights and development. You also need to be honest with yourself about what weaknesses and strengths you have as a leader to be effective at mentoring or developing your people. For Ted Lasso, he found the greatest impact he could have on those around him was to help them develop on a personal personal level. That may not be necessarily where you can provide the most valuable guidance. It is okay not to be all-knowing about all subjects. Your people understand that you are human, so if they are struggling and need help in an area where you might also struggle, do not attempt to be something you are not, but instead try your best to point them in a direction where they can receive help. That being said, understand that the experience that you have is valuable. Even things that may seem simple or small to you can have a great impact on one of your people, so do not hold back guidance and insights from those in your organization who are struggling for fear of offending them. Very few are offended by a person sincerely reaching out to help, especially when that help is coming from their leader. Alright, I have a challenge for you from today's lesson. I want each of you to answer the question, in what way would you best be able to mentor and develop your people? Make sure to put your answer in the comments so that we can all learn from each other. Till next time, keep on learning. Thank you for watching. Much of what I go over in my lessons can be found in my book, Mission First, People Always, which is available for purchase through the link in the description of the video. If you enjoyed today's video and want to watch more leadership lessons, then be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.